There's been lots of talk in Democratic circles about empowering people of color politically. Joe Biden did it today with his choice of Senator Kamala Harris to be his running mate. Let's learn more about your commitment to that goal, each of you. For most of the past 20 years, Boston has been a majority non-white city, and yet the city has yet to be run by a mayor of color, even as dozens of other major cities have elected non-white mayors. It seems likely that a well-qualified person of color will make the runoff to challenge incumbent Mayor Marty Walsh next year. Will you pledge right now to support that qualified person of color? Senator, 1 minute.
Well, first of all, I would say this, that it's impossible to predict the future. It just is. You're asking a hypothetical. And Mayor Walsh is doing a good job right now. I will just say that right up front. And, you know, I'm in a race here with Congressman Kennedy. We're unsure of the outcome just 3 weeks from now, much less 2 years from now that you're now talking about.
Next year.
But I just want to go back again to 1973, when I stood with the Black Caucus to make sure there would be a black Senate seat in Boston. I did stand with them, and that's why they are endorsing me in this race. Those people who were there long ago trying to get justice for Boston, I stood with them, I fought with them, and we won. That's why there is a black Senate seat in the city of Boston right now.
Thank you. Mr. Kennedy, 1 minute.
Correct that record here real fast. Senator, again, you referenced the work with that seat with Senator Owens. That the majority of Democrats voted to create that seat. And while you were working on that, you opposed the integration of the Boston public schools. I don't think racial justice is something that you can cherry pick. Racial justice is something you are committed to or you are not. With regards to your question, John, Mayor Walsh, I think, is doing a good job. I think if there's a lesson from this moment in politics, no one knows what the heck's going to happen. And I think there are a number of we have seen extraordinary empowerment of particularly women of color, a number of very talented members of the City Council. But I think it's far too early to predict if anyone's going to jump into that race. And I think Mayor Walsh certainly deserves the chance to make his case.
Rebuttal, if any?
Yeah, just another correction of the Congressman. It was not a majority of Democrats that voted to create that black Senate seat in 1973. It was a small minority of Democrats who bucked their own party leadership in the House of Representatives at that time. A small minority. We actually had to join with the Republicans to support Governor Frank Sargent at that time. There were 55 Republicans. Only took a small number of Democrats out of a huge number. I was part of that small number of Democrats who did that. That is just completely untrue. It was not a majority of Democrats, but a small minority, and I joined with them to create justice to ensure that there would be a black Senate seat in the city.
Response.
Again, Senator, the fact is that as you say that you are advocating for the creation of that seat, on one of the most searing racial justice moments in Massachusetts history, for the integration of the Boston public schools, you chose to support the continued segregation. That was your choice. Now, the issue here isn't that it was just one choice. You have continued, you opposed busing. You voted for 3 strikes and mass incarceration. You still refuse to apologize for the consequences of the 1994 crime bill. You joined with Republicans against the Obama administration, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Democrats, and were the only member of the House Democratic delegation to vote to maintain the number of immigration detention beds used to detain immigrants. And when a mom and dad came to ask you for justice for their murdered son, this isn't some bill. This is a family in front of you.
All right, that's a laundry list there. You take your time and respond.
Yeah, thank you, John, very much. The crime bill was supported by every member of the Massachusetts delegation, by Nancy Pelosi, by Joe Biden, because it had provisions in there that created the Violence Against Women Act. It was a ban on assault weapons. The sentencing guidelines were clearly wrong. They need to be corrected. And I do believe that is something that has to be done, and that's what I'm partnering with Cory Booker with the Next Step app to achieve. But on this immigration bed issue, let me just again say very clearly that Congressman Kennedy, later on in the same year, he cast a vote for a bill that had the very same provision in it. I did not support increasing those beds. I was working hard, and I was successful in putting a ban on knives on planes because of what happened at Logan Airport, because of the hijacking, because of the murder of 150 people by Mohammed Atta and the other 9 hijackers on that day. And I knew it was knives on planes, and there was an effort that was going to allow knives back into the passenger cabin of planes. So I worked successfully to get that language in. But on the issue of those beds, in that one bill, yes, but it was because I was successful in banning knives on planes. But later on in the same year, Congressman Kennedy, in another bill, voted for the very same language. So give me a break, Congressman. You did the exact same thing, but in a different bill.
Go ahead.
So, sorry everybody, but we're going to correct this record again. Senator, you had a chance to vote as to whether we should lower the number of immigrant detention beds or not. You were the only member of the Massachusetts delegation to side with Republicans to pass that bill. The only one. Fact. You now claim that it has something to do with knives on a plane. This was 12 years after 9/11. The issue on knives was worked out earlier that day. Earlier that day, this amendment had nothing to do, this bill had nothing to do with it. But yet, you still cast that vote. That was your choice. Because you joined with Republicans and passed that bill, it got wrapped up in an overall government funding measure. The difference between our 2 votes is you had the chance to stand with an immigrant community and the Massachusetts delegation and President Obama and the Hispanic caucus, and you chose not to stand with Republicans. When it came back to vote to fund government or not, because they passed the bill that you voted for, we had to swallow it to fund government.
One final go-round on this.
Again, thank you, John. Thank you, John. And again, Congressman Kennedy, later on in the same year, cast the same vote. It was in a large package again, large package then, as it was in a large package the time before. That's the legislative process. And I think we both opposed increasing those beds. We both did. Okay? But to say that he did not vote on a bill to increase those beds is just absolutely wrong. Thank you.
He might say we both oppose it. I voted against it. He voted for it.